Hello learners, welcome to this course on preparation of research proposal in social sciences. I am Dr. Pratik Chaurasia, Assistant Professor, Faculty of Education, Banaras Hindu University. Today we are going to discuss our lecture number 29, which is based on understanding the concept of sampling and sample. So let us begin. Key learning themes for today's discussion. What is sampling and sample? Significance of sampling, sampling frame, types of sampling method, an overview, probability sampling method, non-probability sampling method, determining sample size, and educational examples. Today we are going to discuss a very important component of your research proposal, that how you are going to take sample and what will be the different basic fundamental aspects related to sampling in a study. So let us discuss all this one by one. What is sampling and sample? For a researcher, this question is very important, that what actually sampling is and what is the sample. Sampling. Sampling is the process of selecting a subset of individuals from a population to represent the whole. It allows researchers to draw conclusion without studying the entire population. Now you can see here, it's a very interesting thing that comes into the discussion, that it allows the researcher to draw conclusion without studying the entire population. That is why it is very important, because whenever you conduct any kind of a research on any kind of a topic, you have some financial and time constraint. Definitely, any research you will take into consideration, it will have some time and financial constraint. Therefore, you cannot go for collecting data from all the population. If you remember, in our previous lecture, we have discussed basic aspects of population. So, as a researcher, you are not going to address and counter the population every time. Therefore, it becomes important for a researcher to understand that what is sampling, because with the help of sampling, you actually draw conclusions without studying the entire population. A sample is the actual group selected from the population for participation in the study. You can see here, a sample is the actual group selected from the population for participation in the study. It means whenever you are selecting any kind of a population, that population is not fully participating in your study. This is a very important point. You can take a note of this also, that the major difference between population and sample is that population you have defined, and out of population you are going to select some certain groups, some certain target groups, which will be termed as a sample of the study, and that sample will only participate in the study. Participate means you are going to collect data from that selected group or individuals, not from whole population. It means you have to take a very important and very crucial decisions regarding what to be selected in a population and what is to be left. We'll discuss all this thing in upcoming slides. So you can see here, it must be representative of the population to ensure generalizability. Very important aspect to be understood, that whenever you are selecting any kind of a sample, it is very important that your selected sample should be the true representative of the population that you have defined. Try to just connect the dots here, that you have already defined a population and now you are going towards making a sampling and selective sample. So it is very important for a researcher to understand that what is to be left and what is to be selected from a population. On the other hand, what you select as a sample, should be the true representative of the population. If you make a justice with this thing, definitely your sampling will be correct and your sample that you are going to take will also be appropriate with respect to your research demand. Example, from a population of 1000 B.Ed students, selecting 100 randomly for a study on tech integration attitudes. Here you can see. Let us take a very simple example that you are going to see a tech integration attitudes of B.Ed students. Definitely you will select some sample out of it. Whatever the major population you have defined, out of that you will select some certain sample. Here you can see, out of 1000 B.Ed students, you are going to select 100 students randomly. We'll discuss this later on, that what are the methods to select these 100 students. So you can understand here, it's a very important thing to be understood, that after defining your population, the next step is of very prime importance, that the sample you are taking, it means something you are selecting and something you are rejecting. Whatever you are rejecting, it may be case that you are rejecting the true one, or it may be the case you are selecting the true one. But whatever you are selecting, be very cautious toward this thing, that it should be true representative of the population which you have defined in your study. Now, significance of sampling. You can see here on the screen, it reduces cost and time involved in data collection. Just now I have said you that in any kind of a research, when you are going to do research, there are some certain financial as well as time constraint. There are, it will be 100%, some limitations will be there. So as a researcher, you have to do your research in the available cost and time. Therefore, sampling provides you flexibility, that if you are selecting a sample which is true representative of the population defined in your study, then ultimately it will yield you the full and correct data that you want to collect in your study. Because if you select the sample properly, it will represent the population properly, and the moment you collect data properly from sample, the data obtained will represent the population accurately. So sampling reduces the cost and time involved in data collection. Next is, makes data manageable and analysis feasible. Very important. It makes the data manageable and analysis feasible. Let us discuss this with the help of an example. Suppose you are going to do a research over 1000 sample, and when you are going to do research over 100 sample, as a researcher, no doubt that 100 sample will be more convenient and more manageable by the researcher. But it does not mean that you have to curtail down the sample size of a research to make it more convenient and manageable. It is demand of the study. It is the demand of the study that you are selecting a sample, because it actually makes it manageable, because there will be research which will have large populations, large size of the individuals and groups of peoples in a population. So when you make a correct decision of sample, definitely data obtained will be less as compared to size of the population. It will be easily manageable and analysis will also be feasible. Next is, enables researcher to test hypothesis on a manageable group. Very important, that it enables the researcher to test hypothesis on a manageable group. Whatever you are going to test, as a researcher in the form of a hypothesis, sample provides you flexibility as well as support in terms of managing it properly. Next is, ethical feasibility, minimizes intrusion. That is also very important. Whenever you select a sample, it gives you ethical feasibility, because you are looking into the consent, availability and ethical aspect, that you are not disturbing anything from the population and collecting the data with your ethical limitations. You can see here, oversampling or irrelevant sampling may breach informed consent principles and make the outcomes questionable. Sampling frame. This is another very important aspect that you have to understand that what is sampling frame. You can see here on the screen, a sampling frame is the actual list from which the sample is drawn. Very, very important. A sampling frame is the actual list from which the sample is drawn. It should be comprehensive, it should be updated, it should be relevant. Let us see one example here. A list of all enrolled DLED students in UP DIETS during 2024-25 academic session. Clearly, you can see here, it's a list from which you are going to select your sample. So, sampling frame act as a supporting thing in terms of collecting your sample, and most importantly, it provides you focus. It provides you the focus. For example, the moment you have the actual list of your sample, it provides you a focus that these are the members, these are the individuals, or these are the groups, whatever you have in your research, and you have to select so and so. Types of sampling method, very important. Let us have a discussion. Probability and non-probability sampling. Whenever you are going to do a sampling, basic classification between sampling method is probability sampling and non-probability sampling. So, as the name suggests, probability sampling, random selection is there. Random selection is there, and along with this, every member has an equal chance to be selected. Every member has an equal chance to be selected. On the other hand, non-probability sampling is based on judgment. Non-probability sampling is having that not all members have equal chance to be selected. Here, let us make a differentiation between this probability and non-probability sampling, that when you are going with the probability sampling, it means you are giving every member equal chance to be selected in your sample. But when you are going for a non-probability sampling, you are not giving, you are restricting some part of the population by some rules or methods that you have defined. You are not selecting, not giving chance to each and every member of the population to be selected in the sample. That is what non-probability sampling, and that is why it is based on some certain kind of a judgment. Whereas when you see probability sampling is more open. Probability sampling, you can say, is more inclusive. It gives every member proper chance, equal chance to be selected as a sample in while sampling. Let us have a differentiation between probability sampling method. You can see here, there are some certain types of probability sampling method. First is simple random, second is stratified, third is systematic, and fourth is cluster. And these four different types of probability sampling method have their different qualities and usability also. You can use it different kinds of probability sampling method as per the demand of your study. And it is very, very important for a researcher to understand now the objective and look into the research question. Whenever you are in a phase of a research proposal and you are defining your sampling methods, sampling techniques in your research proposal, the moment you come to this point, look back to your research objective and research hypothesis. Very, very important. Look back into your research hypothesis as well as research question, because what is required in your research is going to be coming from your objective, and on the basis of that you will select desired or appropriate kind of a sampling method. So description, let us see description of the simple random method. Each member has equal chance. Each member, when you are going for a simple random sampling, each member has an equal chance to be selected as a sample. Example, lottery of roll numbers. For example, you are going to select some student from a class. Definitely they have some roll numbers, and you are giving lottery and then taking and selecting students out of it. Type 2, stratified sampling. Description: population divided into strata and random sample from each strata is being selected. Means here when you do a stratified sampling, you make a strata out of a population, and out of that strata you make a simple random selection. Example, selecting 10th students from SC, ST, OBC or general category. Here SC, ST, OBC in general act as a strata. Systematic sampling: every nth individual is selected. For example, when you are going to select 100 sample out of 1000 existing population, then you have made a rule that I will select every fifth student out of the population. Means you will select every fifth student out of 1000 student. That kind of a sampling is also called systematic sampling, and it is also a probability sampling technique. For example, you can see every fifth student on admission list you are going to select. Last is cluster. Naturally occurring group selected. In a population there are some natural occurring groups, and as a researcher you define, identify and use that cluster for your data collection, for your sample. You can see here, choosing 5 diets out of 20, then serving all students in each diet. Here you select a already naturally existing cluster and you make a selection out of that cluster. So these are the 4 basic types of probability sampling method which you can utilize on the basis of requirement and demand of your research. Non-probability sampling method. Let us see here one by one. First is convenience type of sampling. Second is purposive, third is quota, and fourth is snowball. These are the 4 major types of non-probability sampling methods that a researcher utilize as per the demands and requirement of the research. And for selecting this kind of a sampling methods also, you have to again look back towards your research objective. Look back means what your research objective demands. As a researcher, what you are trying to achieve, and then you will select your sampling method and ultimately sample of the study. So let us see here one by one. Convenience sampling method. Description: based on availability. Very important that you are going to select a sample which is available as well as required in your research. For example, if you are going to do some research over cancer patients, then definitely everybody is not suffering from cancer, and your research requires a sample person who is suffering from cancer. Then ultimately you are going to do a sampling related to that particular aspect which is based on availability. Example, you can see here, students in one own class. Purposive: a specific trait considered. Now here it is very important. There are several kind of researches where some specific traits are required. For example, when you are going to do any kind of a research which is based on slow learners or underachiever students in mathematics in grade 6, then you are not going to execute that sampling technique over all students, because your research demands that we need those students, those who are suffering in mathematics achievement in 6th grade. It's a purposive thing. A specific trait you have to identify and pick that sample. Another example you can see here, ICT using teachers in rural schools. Third is quota type of sampling. Fixed number from a specific group. That is very important, that when you have a large sample, you are giving a kind of a reservation to some certain groups of people on the basis of your research. Let us see here, male and 10 female STEM students. For example, you are doing some research over STEM students, and then you are restricting that you need 10 male and 10 female from a population. So this is how you select the quota sampling. Snowball: Very important and a very interesting kind of a non-probability sampling method, generally used in a qualitative researches. And in this kind of a sampling method, researcher is actually unaware of the sample. Researcher is actually unaware of the sample, because it's like one participant or one sample that you meet first time recruits or guides or drag you toward the other sample, toward the other sample. You can see here description, participant recruits others. Here recruit means they will guide the researcher that you can go to this person, they can serve as a sample for you. Example, teachers with rare disability in inclusive education. For example, there are several kind of a disability. Some teachers are having expertise in some certain kind of a disability, and you want to do research over those teachers, those who have expertise in that disability. Then ultimately, number of teachers having that kind of specialization is less, and then you are going to one teacher and then asking to another teacher that who is the having expertise in that disability. That teacher will guide you that yes, you can go to person X, that person is having disability in specialization in that kind of disability. So this is how you do your sampling and collect your samples and data with the help of snowball technique. Determining sample size. There are several factors that determine sample size. Let us see, influenced by population size, desired confidence level, margin of error. These are the three important aspects which influence the sample size, and as a researcher you have to be very specific related to sample size, because when you have 1000 member in a population, how you will select 100, 200, 300 sample out of it? There should be some specific rules, there should be some research methods, some standard things. On the basis of that you can select your sample. So these are the three important parameters that you see: what is population size, desired confidence level, and margin of error. Use of sample size calculator is also recommended, like Rasoft you can use. It is very easily available on the websites. You can go there and you can put your sample size, you can put your population size and calculate that what will be the appropriate sample size for your research. One example you can see here, for a population of 500 with 95% confidence and plus minus 5% error, a sample size approximately of 220 is ideal. So that is how you do, that is how you make decision. And as a researcher, it is very important for you to make a correct decision regarding selection of sample size. Otherwise, you may suffer with less number of sample size, inadequate number of sample size. You may suffer with more number of sample size with respect to the population that you have targeted. So take care of these things to determine your sample size. Here are some educational examples. Let us see one by one. First is attitude towards NEP 2020. Now population, government school teachers in Delhi. This is the population, the broad area, the broad group that you are selecting. Sampling method, stratified sampling. You can go by stratified sampling here by subject taught, that you can make a strata of different subject taught by teachers and then you can collect the data out of that strata. So it's a kind of a example that you can do it in this manner. Next is efficacy of online modules. Population, B.Ed student in South India. Sampling method, cluster sampling, selecting colleges. If you can just remember here, in a cluster sampling I said that naturally existing clusters, you are not forming naturally existing, it is there. So there will be several colleges existing. You can select that college as a cluster, and out of that cluster you can select B.Ed student to study efficacy of online modules. Next is inclusivity in curriculum. And these are the samples. You can have different kinds of a population, different kinds of a sampling method over this kind of a topic also, but it's just a sample that how you move forward in terms of making decision towards your population and sampling method. So third one you can see here, inclusivity in curriculum, disabled students in higher education institutes, snowball sampling, very interesting. Snowball sampling, with the help of snowball sampling you can do it, and this is how you can see that population and sampling method are interlinked together, as well as you can see they support each other back to back, because the way you have defined your population, similar kind of a sampling method which is appropriate for some certain kind of a population or research topic will emerge, and on the basis of that you are going to select your sample. So concluding discussion for today's lecture, key takeaways. First, sampling must align with research design and objective. Very important and very useful for a researcher, that whenever you are doing the sampling process, writing the sampling process in your research proposal, it should align with your research design and objective. I will just explain it with an example. For example, when you are doing experimental research design, then definitely you have to look into the aspects of doing sampling with the help of sampling technique which are suitable to experimental research design. You are not going to utilize a snowball sampling method here, because the kind of a research design you take, the kind of a sampling you have to utilize and ultimately obtain your sample. Second is, a representative sample enhances validity and generalizability. Very important for you to understand that whenever you represent your sample, it basically enhances the validity and generalizability of your research. Up to what extent you can generalize the finding of your study, it depends upon your sampling and sample. It is highly dependent. So look into this aspect, that when you are going to do any research and forming a research proposal of that how your sampling technique will strengthen the validity and generalizability of your research, because this is also a very important thing that person concerns or evaluators or funding agencies look into the aspect that what kind of a sampling technique you have adopted. On the basis of that, they will look into the validity and generalizability of your findings. So the more generalizable your finding is, that the more chances you have for a more comprehensive research. Third is, ethical, methodological and practical factors must guide sampling selection. Very important and very crucial aspect to be understood, that whenever you are adopting any kind of a sample selection strategy, be very particular with the ethical aspect. Otherwise it may create problems in the later stage of a research. Be very particular with your methodological aspects and practical factors. For example, feasibility, whether you are able to select that sample or not, whether you are going to execute that sampling strategy or not, because it's not only that you are writing some certain kind of a sampling technique in your research proposal, because it may create a difficulty in terms of relating the things together, because the way you have defined your sampling strategy, it shows the reflections that how you understand your research well, that how you understand your variable well, because actually you are going to do all the things over the sample. So be very particular and very concise with this thing when it comes to research design and objectives, when it comes to representing sample, because it strengthens the validity and generalizability as well as methodological aspects of your research. So I hope you understand that how to do sample and do this sampling technique. So this is all from this lecture. Thank you so much.